Tonya is much more than a drama that tells us about the life of a great skater. It is also the movie that changed Margot Robbie's life forever and made her realize that she was a great actress. Everyone had doubts about her performance, but Margot overcame all the obstacles and filled the skates with a training that almost caused her to lose her health and her wedding. Today we'll tell you about all those strict rules that Margot had to follow during the filming. She spent hours training, day and night without rest, to be able to play the role of Tonya Harding. Of course, she didn't do it alone. She had Sarah Kawahara, who isn't just any skater. She's nothing more and nothing less than the person behind choreographing the Disney on Ice show. What a blessing! Robbie was practicing at the rink on New Year's Eve and even kept practicing non-stop the day before her wedding to Tom Ackerley. Now that's what I call commitment. Robbie is not a professional skater. She wasn't even a good skater, as she was terrified of ice skating. In her own words, as a child she wasn't scared at all, but after the age of 26, it was a very scary thing to do. So, with all that fear and embarrassment of falling, she managed to learn 5 routines well enough to leave everyone impressed. But it wasn't easy, and Margot just couldn't feel confident with her skills. And it wasn't until a few weeks before she started filming that she could feel that she would be able to do almost the same as Tonya Harding. And I say almost the same because Harding was such a skilled skater that not even a stunt double was able to replicate her moves. Harding was able to do a move that only 6 women after her were able to do, and even if they had thought about including Tonya in the movie, she was probably training for the Olympics, and that's why they ended up using computer effects. But that's not to say that Robbie gave up easily. She gave it her all. She worked so hard for her role that we almost lost Margot Robbie because she suffered from major health problems. She had a herniated disc since she started her training, but she didn't realize this until a week after she started filming. So much that her arms already started going numb. In total, it was 5 months, 4 hours a day and 5 days a week that Margot spent learning to ice skate, forcing her to become a fan of the sport. Her strict training consisted of warm-ups on the floor and the mirroring shoes and skates, and then doing all that on the ice. And her own choreographer boasted that she could push Margot so hard that she told the director she wouldn't need help of a stunt double as much. With all this training, Margot's skating looked very natural, describing her as a very talented athlete. For the body, we are very used to seeing actors who get well-defined and muscular to play superheroes. But there is something much more difficult in trying to replicate the physique of people in real life, especially with athletes. And that is that Margot was thinner than Tonya, who also became a boxer. At first, the costume designer thought of putting paddings on Margot's body, but it'll be very difficult to skate with padding in the clothes. And that way, all Margot's training would have been in vain. The director wanted to highlight Margot Robbie's way of moving, and that's when the actress showed her ingenuity. Robbie changed her walk to a more masculine one, so she could look a little taller, and she also gained the muscle in her shoulders and hips, something that impressed the production crew so much that they didn't even know how to explain it. The changes that followed Robbie didn't stop, as the film shows us Tonya Harding from teenager to her boxing days, and of course, her retirement. These are a lot of stages in the skater's life that Robbie had to replicate, which she achieved by using prosthetics in her body, some to make her arms more muscular, and others to get a little more belly. The voice. And another thing Margot had to change was her voice. As Margot is Australian, while Tonya is American, she had to sound like Tonya and master the characteristic accent that the skater had. And for that, she had another coach, a voice coach, who also taught her how to adjust her voice timbre to act the different ages of Tonya Harding throughout the movie. The coach and Margot would talk about things that even the director didn't understand, but Margot was kind enough to explain that her timbre should sound higher pitch at 15 than at 21. This sounds like an easy job, doesn't it? But the reality is that no. Margot had to spend several months trying to get the perfect accent and the timbre, as she didn't want to owe anything to a great character like Tonya, the face. And for the face, she had to work with a lot of makeup, with some tricks of the cinema so she could look with a thicker face. And they pulled the corners of her eyes down, with the idea of making them look less shiny. As we see Margot Robbie, she has a rather feminine and delicate face, but she proved that as well as she can be Barbie, she could also be a tough skater. Can you imagine having to work with duct tape over your eyes? On top of that, she had to go back to her teenage years, wearing braces on her body, including a plastic retainer in her mouth. I wish they had been the only prosthetics on her face, but she also had to wear them on the neck, nose, cheeks, torso, and even under the chin. And that's not all. Originally, there were many more prostheses, but they had to be removed, as it would have been too demanding for poor Margot. Time rushed. Margot didn't get all the work though, as they made a talking head that replaced Margot's face, one that they got to wear for 12 hours straight once. The whole crew was working for hours because they had a very rushed production. They had only half the budget they needed. And so there were days where Margot was acting like a teenage Tonya in the morning, 20s at noon, and 40s in the afternoon. So fast they worked that they accomplished something almost impossible. Once, they got to do 20 setups in a single day, which is not only a huge job for Robbie, but also for the production. Hairstyles. And the 20s montages sound even harder to do when we learned that Tonya Harding was a woman with very iconic and famous hairstyles. Margot and all her doubles walked back and forth changing wigs, more than they changed clothes, leaving the stylists on set traumatized. There was one hairstyle that shone above all, one that would be the crown jewel of the entire film, which Margot and her stylist were determined to recreate in the best possible way. And in doing so, they came up with the one thing a stylist would never think of doing: using beer. They mixed that special ingredient with the wig, and voila! You get a hairstyle with a crunchy style. It gives the impression that the hair is fried. And that's how Margot was able to show that iconic hairstyle for the time. Wardrobe. And that could only be accompanied by an excellent wardrobe, which is no small feat because with 236 scenes and 96 costume changes, they needed to put a lot of thought into this. Searching the entire catalog of Tonya's look became an obsession for the team, something that Margot supported by researching together with the departments of the film. And so together, they managed to compile each one of those costumes that Tonya wore throughout her life, from a child to a retired woman. Can you imagine how much effort they put into all this movie? There's no doubt that being an actor takes a lot of effort. But did you already know all these rules behind Tonya? Leave your answers in the comments.